A lot of us look at Jesus healing people in the scriptures, right? The lame man at the pool. A lot of disabled people were at that pool. He stepped over quite a few of them to heal one individual.
Right.
When you see something like that, what does that say to you?
Well, how controversial do we want to
It's
get?
the deep end.
Jesus does heal the blind man, but that doesn't make his life better. In fact, his life gets a lot worse. I will literally stand on the stage and talk about how my soul is healed. I'm good, everybody. And then I'll get off the stage and immediately somebody will be waiting back there to pray with me.
All right, let's be real.
Yeah,
What do you say to people when what you want to be fixed doesn't get fixed?
because some people get healed and some don't.
Yeah.
Well,
This is The Deep End with Lecrae.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited because today we have an incredible guest, somebody that I admire greatly, somebody who doesn't even know that she's impacted my journey, but she'll find out today.
yeah, no, I don't, but yay, I'm glad to be here.
We got an incredible individual, speaker, leader, author. I mean, you name it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Resilient
truly.
person, Katherine Wolf. Thank you for being here.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. So we were talking earlier. We got kids who go to school together.
Yep.
We've interacted in certain places and certain spots, and that's kind of how I have got to know you, the person. But before that, I would watch you speak and hear some aspects of your story, and some of that I saw years ago, but probably about 8 years ago, I had a severe kind of mental health crisis. And I felt, in some senses, like a different level of empathy for people who have experienced tragedy, crisis that I hadn't felt before.
Yeah.
And sometimes because I was struggling internally, I felt overlooked. Like people couldn't see what was going on with me, but I was really struggling in a dark place. And man, some of the things that you would say in your speaking and just how resilient you were, regardless of everything that's going on in your life, would just give me life and give me encouragement. And so I just want to thank you,
Gosh, what a compliment. And I think there's something to that when you suffer really hard things, your capacity to engage other suffering gets bigger and greater. And I think there's something to that. The trauma opens you up and gives capacity for holding more.
Yeah,
you want to hold more.
So when you tell your story, where do you usually start? Because we want to hear your story, but where do you generally
Well, the story of the stroke, I'm assuming you mean, not my life story.
Well, hey, either way, I was going.
Yeah, whatever. I would normally start as a 26-year-old with a 6-month baby in the next room. I had a massive stroke. Is that a good place to start?
Sure.
Yeah, totally.
But I'm curious, before that, though, like, who were you? What was life like? You grew up
in Athens, Georgia.
Yeah.
I grew up in Athens, Georgia. Moved to Birmingham, Alabama. Went to college at Stanford University. Married my college sweetheart. And for some reason, we moved to California. And I mean, now we know that the Lord really took us there to save my life. But at the time, we just kind of wanted an adventure. We were young and don't really know why.
Yeah.
But we moved, and Jay went to law school at Pepperdine, and I was doing just all kinds of funny, crazy things to pay our bills, including catalog modeling. I'm not kidding. Really hilarious.
I believe it.
It was something. The highlight of my career, if you can put pictures in, this would be an opportunity, was modeling for a Tiki Hut Moo at Disneyland. So I was like a really big time model before my stroke. You probably heard of me like Giselle, Catherine. Anyway, I got unexpectedly pregnant, but it was perfectly on time because when James was born, 6 months and 5 days later, out of absolutely nowhere, with no medical history, no family history, no symptoms prior, nothing. I had a massive brainstem stroke and nearly died due to a birth defect that had grown in my brain my entire life that ruptured in my brainstem as a 26-year-old. And obviously, as you can see today, I acquired very significant disabilities. In our community, there are typically able-bodied people who acquire disabilities and are then living with profound disabilities, and that's kind of my camp. I am a person who before had no disabilities externally, plenty internally. We'll get to that in a minute, but I now I can't drive a car. I have a hand that doesn't work. My face is paralyzed. I can't walk on my own, and many profound disabilities. But it's hard to hang out with those because I'm obviously doing so great. So
Right.
It's a little tough to be like, this laundry list of horrible things because it's actually not really horrible.
Well, today you can say that because you know God has done some incredible things, and we can talk about your faith journey a little bit. But at 26, with this incredible modeling career,
illustrious, absolutely.
But I mean, you were a young, vibrant,
totally,
you know, mom who graduated college, and you got this husband in law school, all these things.
Yeah.
When it happens in 2008, walk us through that process. Like, you recover in the hospital, and what are you thinking? Like, what's going on?
So initially, I have no memory. I was in a semi-conscious state for 2.5 months.
Okay.
So when I wake up, I don't even understand that a day has passed. So I'm thinking it's the next day maybe, and I have no idea that it's been 2.5 months. And even then, I would spend another 6 months in an acute rehab and another year in an intensive brain rehab group therapy, relearning to eat, speak, walk, all the things. And swallowing was a huge issue for me. I did not eat food or drink water, nothing. For almost a full year, I was NPO, nothing per oral. And then even once I began eating again, I still could not walk until 18 months had passed. So, and even now, it's not great. I don't walk really well or anything, but it kind of happens. So
are you like, after this 2-month period where you're having to go through rehab, are you cognizant of what's happened? Is your brain still trying to catch up? Like, what's going on in your mind?
You're saying once I was awake again?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, yeah, a complete shock. I just couldn't wrap my mind around what could have happened. In fact, I created stories in my head before I was really fully awake even, that I must have been on a motorcycle, because only something like a massive motorcycle accident could render me in this state.
Wow.
Or my brain couldn't process a stroke, because I think for many, a stroke feels like something that happens to a person who is elderly, or, you definitely aren't thinking a 26-year-old vibrant young mom would have a massive stroke and nearly die.
Yeah.
But slowly I began to accept what had happened, but that didn't remotely mean that I was okay with what happened. Of course. That I definitely think there was quite a while of just saying, how can I live in this state?
Yeah.
I think early on, when nothing on my body would work normally, typically, I felt like I was caught between life and death, and honestly, neither side wanted me. It wasn't really fully alive, I felt like. But I wasn't in heaven, so I'm stuck in this horrific holding pattern, and how am I going to live like this?
Yeah.
But I will say that all that wrestling, at my lowest points, wondering if God made a mistake by leaving me on earth, honestly. Like, should I be alive?
Yeah.
That was all within the first few years. And then very slowly, probably at around the 5-year mark, it's kind of like I came up for air and realized, like, okay, I've got to radically accept this story because this story isn't going away. You know, everybody's already prayed it away and it didn't go away. So now it's going to be about accepting the story and befriending the story. And that's very powerful, I think, is can you learn to love the thing that you hate?
Yeah. Yeah, it took me, you know, for me, the darkest night of my soul was like not being able to cognitively appreciate any of the things that I did once before. I could not laugh. I had no appetite. Nothing I saw was enjoyable. I couldn't enjoy sports. And I thought to myself, oh, is this how life is going to be for me? And there was a part for me that was like, it was like, where do I place blame? And I'm wondering for you, like, was there a feeling of like, God, is this your fault? Should I have done this or should this have happened? Like, are you processing any of those particular things?
Oh, for sure.
Hold on real quick. Wait a minute. I need you to know this. We're in season 2 of The Deep End. And season 2 is about stories, specifically stories from people that you want to hear from, stories that you want to hear. Tell us what stories you want to hear. Tell us the people whose stories you want to hear. Because I'm a firm believer that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, our stories. So we want to tell those stories here on The Deep End. Let me know who you want to hear from and what you want to hear about. All right? Blessings.
I would say probably, so the stroke was April 21st. I would say by about 6 months later, I forget, probably like November 2008, when nothing is working. So they keep testing me to try to swallow again, and I'm failing the test. And I can't even stand up yet. I can't even hold my now 1-year-old baby boy. I mean, it's just so deeply wrong. Like nothing is working. It's so sad. I'm in brain rehab, which is super depressing on every level. And I can remember moments of wondering, like, God, are you real? And if you are real, what the heck? How? I don't even begin to understand. I don't have a category for this happening. And it just feels so wrong. And are you even here? And there was a lot of really complicated, like, dark night of the soul wrestling in it all. And at the end of the day, which I think is consistent, I did a lot of interesting reading at the time of people that have like real kind of a dark night of the soul themselves, that you kind of can't get away from the reality that somehow God is at work in the story, even though you kind of want to. You're like, I don't even know if you're real, God, but I can't deny that I didn't die. I can't deny that I am actually on earth right now. And there is breath in my lungs. I am here. And my body may not work, but we are so much more than our bodies. My soul works great, and it's intact in here. My personality is here. My faith is here. So it's still go time. It's just my body doesn't work.
No, that's very helpful. I think, you know, there's a lot of us out here who struggle with, like, God, are you good? Is this good? What is good?
Right.
And I think you've kind of redefined that in a lot of ways, and helped a lot of people process that. Like, if you look at the definition of good, it's to be desired or approved of, right? And then there's a million people that would look at your situation and say, oh, that's not good. Right? There's nothing good about it. But you change that definition, like, what's the difference between, like, well, first of all, what would you change it to if you know, if you could change the definition of good?
I love that you ask me this, Lecrae. I am fascinated by this notion of goodness and what is good. And the good life isn't the good life when you get the good things or when you are living out some version of the prosperity gospel, honestly, that good means good things are happening because God is blessing me with the good stuff. And it gets really complicated if you believe Psalm 84:11 that there's no good thing that God withholds from those walking uprightly with him. So wait, if God's not withholding good things, how can that be when bad things happen?
Yeah.
And upon a lot of soul searching and wrestling, I stumbled upon a theologian from the 1600s named Sir Richard Baker. And he wrote words that have like marked my life and just given me a new understanding of what good really means. He wrote, the truly good things of God are nothing that this physical world can ever touch. The truly good things of God are peace of conscience, joy in the Holy Spirit, fruition of his presence in this life, and assurance of his face in the next. Of these things we can know God will never withhold, because they're nothing that this physical world could ever touch. And I mean, that I have chills even saying it, because that has so been the truth of my story, is the truly good things of God have never left. And despite dramatic earthly shifts in my actual body and in the state of my situation. I mean, my life circumstances have been pretty terrible at some points. And yet, God's goodness has never left the scene, which is pretty powerful.
That is incredibly powerful. That, to me, that's part of your gift to the world. Like, like sincerely, there have been days in my life where I'm like, oh, the world on the outside can't see that I'm gripped with crippling anxiety or something that is hindering my ability to appreciate anything right now.
Right.
You could give me the best meal ever, I would not appreciate it. You could give me the best song, best movie. I don't have the mental capacity to appreciate it. But in those moments, I would begin to, in light of a lot of what you've just said, look forward to a future reality.
Right.
I would begin to be grateful that the presence of God is with me.
Right.
And so for you, like,
You had hope.
exactly. How's that manifested for you? Like, how's that, like, in the dark times, like, what does that look like for you to reach for that and value that?
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, it's never been perfect by any estimation, but I've had hope throughout my entire journey. And like you're saying, or maybe you weren't saying it this way, but I will.
Yeah.
I've kind of gotten like a situation that means nobody wonders if everything is okay. Like for you, in those dark nights of the soul, you're walking around and no one has any idea what you're going through.
Right.
There's no question here that all is not well. My face is paralyzed. I'm in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
I have a hand that doesn't work. Like, no one's under the illusion that I've got it all together.
Sure.
And I'm headed to volunteer at our wonderful school tomorrow morning and teach soccer. No. But in a way, that's this gift, because the way I get to show up in the world is kind of how we all should be treating each other in the world, which is softer and more. People are going through a lot. Let's show care and compassion to them rather than judgment for how they're showing up.
That's so good.
Thanks.
So you make a clear distinction. We all talk about happiness and joy, like, oh, we need to experience joy. And you make some clear distinctions. Like for you, how would you say the difference between joy and happiness is?
Oh, good question. Well, happiness, I think, would be situational, circumstantial. Joy is deeper. I mean, true joy. I mean, I like to say that when there is tragedy, lifelong disability or otherwise on the scene, that we get to be joyful rebels to the darkness, that we get to be in this special camp, that we get to rebel hard with joy. And I would never say rebel with happiness. That feels ridiculous, because that can be changing. Joy is more substantial.
I totally agree. So you can speak to, suffering in a way that I think a lot of people would not be able to. And some people say, man, we got to have joy in this world and suffering in this world. How do they coexist? And what does that look like for your journey of joy and suffering coexisting?
I think you can't take one without the other. That I like to say very basically good and hard are commingled.
Okay.
That good hard is actually one word. I have a podcast called The Good Hard Story for a reason. And joy and sorrow are the words you said, joy and suffering? Or,
Yeah, joy and suffering.
It's all kind of the same thing.
Yeah, joy, sorrow,
All of it. There's quote unquote the good and the bad.
Yeah.
But no, the Christian life is very clearly both.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is one note. Those are not mutually exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
They coexist. And they inform each other. That if things are never hard, you never know they're good.
That's good.
If things are always good, you never know they're hard. So, of course, there's
Things are
distinction
always
needed.
hard, you never know they're good. If things are always good, you never know they're hard. That's all right, let's be real.
Yeah.
I think if most American Christians, Western Christians, were honest,
Right.
if you could drill down, they would say, sure, we want Jesus, but we want Jesus because of the amenities that we believe he offers us.
Of course. And on some degree, as desperately as we would want to say, but that's not me, deep down at our core, we're like, but actually, I kind of really do, like, I believe in the sequel to the prosperity gospel for a reason.
Right.
And it's tragic. It's human nature. We want the good stuff. We want to be healthy and wealthy and living the dream all the time. So I think that's not... I think we're humans. Of course we do. We want to protect.
So how do we help Christians in this Western world who have, because honestly, and I was thinking about this, I was actually reading a book about changing our perspectives, and a lot of us, if you grew up anywhere Gen X and below, you grew up in a very you-centered world.
Right.
You were kind of catered to through media. It was basically about you. How would you help Christians see that, this lens of yes, I want Jesus, but I want the blessings that I think I should get along with that. How would you help them wrestle with that or
Well, I get to do that very regularly, actually, Lecrae. So we have this camp. We have a summer camp for families where someone has a disability, and the whole family comes to camp. And we have this coffee shop where we employ people with disabilities to work. So I work in a lot of spaces where people have profound disabilities. And it is fascinating to watch able-bodied people interact with people with profound disabilities because there's this deep shared, we're in this life together and things are not perfect. And I think that is the key, is when we are faced with things are not perfect here, we can finally experience some freedom of, and it's not supposed to be. And that feels so good to own it and recognize we're not in heaven yet. We are on earth and it is broken. And yet we can show grace for things that are not okay in all of our stories.
I like that you mentioned able-bodied, disabled, and I think some of that is beneficial in media and so on and so forth. Some of it is, of course, virtue signaling to make sure Hollywood has all their boxes.
Of course, yes.
Boxes checked.
And who needs the language police? Yes, 100%.
Right.
Totally.
But like you said, there is a perspective shift when you can see things from someone else's lenses.
For sure.
I'm curious, what are some things that you think people are missing because they can't see life from your lens?
Right, totally. Yeah, and I completely agree with that. It can make you kind of annoyed if it is a virtue signal. However, words matter.
Yeah.
And people need to wake up and show kindness, empathy, compassion for hurting brothers and sisters.
Yes.
It feels ridiculous to
Agreed.
not. What was the actual question you asked me? I'm so sorry.
What do you see? You have a unique perspective. And I think when people aren't paying attention to our disabled brothers and sisters, we're missing certain things.
Absolutely.
What are we missing about Jesus? What are we missing about anything?
Right.
And what would you say you're able to see that you wouldn't have been able to see had you not?
I would say probably the number one thing is that joy can come in a life that is not pain-free. And that is fascinating in the disability community. When we gather groups, large numbers of people with disabilities in rural Alabama in the summertime, it is like this 24-hour-a-day electrifying party. And you're gathering people who may be burying children and profoundly disabled people with a whole gamut of huge problems. And yet it's, like our talent show, our dance party are like some of the greatest joy I've ever felt in my life. And that would be consistent with everyone who attends. And I think that when things are very, very broken on the outside, there's just a different level of joy that can happen on the inside because you're no longer pretending. You're not pretending that life is pain-free and easy and perfect. It's like, no, things are hard and messed up and they're not going to be okay this side of heaven. So what are we going to do? We're going to enjoy it. I like to say, don't wait to celebrate. Because we don't know what's going to happen. We might as well celebrate the moment.
Do you like you're many things, right? You're more complex, you're more nuanced than your disabilities.
100%.
And you're not defined by them either.
No.
How do you navigate that when that's kind of the way people see you or approach you or think about you? Like, how do you? Is that something that you wrestle with, process, help other people see? Like, how do you deal with that?
Interesting question. I love that you're asking it. I guess I always feel like, I'm just going to be honest, like that's interesting. I don't want to sound like an egomaniac or something.
Say it.
But I feel confident. Like, think what you want to. I'm going to show up and just be me. And if you're intimidated because I'm so awesome, that's your problem. That's the honest truth. Is that what you're asking? Is like I'm not defined by my disability. Talk to me for 2 minutes and you get that.
Yeah.
So if anything, you are you got it good to get to talk to me. But I recognize that sounds like I'm some sort of like, I don't know, bratty, like entitled. Oh no, but I'm like, I'm so much more than my disability, but a disability is a part of who I am, absolutely. And I think it's part of what makes me amazing.
Yeah. I think if I can be honest, like even for me, like I said, before I had to go through my process, I don't think I had the muscles for that type of empathy. I don't think I had the mind to even dig deeper beneath the surface. I think I was very prejudiced in the way I saw people. And so for me, it began to be very helpful to undo a lot of that. And to just see like, Katherine is dope. She's cool. She's funny. She's this, she's that. She's more than what this exterior has allowed us to see. And I think a lot of people miss out on that, just societally, because we're not engaged. We don't have context. We're not able to spend time. People, it's like the 7-foot tall man. Like, where are they in the real world? Like, you're not seeing the 7-foot tall man. And so you're not having to deal with that reality.
Right.
And so I'm, for me, it's a growth, and I appreciate your humility and your candor because you allow people to navigate and process and wrestle with that, and that means a lot that you give people the space to do that.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's everything. I think everybody's on a journey, and some people get there sooner, and some people have stuff happen and they have to get there sooner.
Yeah.
But we must show grace for where people are and enable them to get to a different place a lot of times. And there has to be grace for that. Yeah.
I'm curious, as a Christian, as somebody who loves the Lord, and you mentioned it earlier, people were like, we're going to pray for healing. We're going to pray for healing. What do you say to people when what you want to be fixed doesn't get fixed?
So this is fascinating you asked me this. So for several years after my stroke, I can't tell you how many people would say they had visions of me being healed or, so-and-so just knows that I'll be wearing high heels again and not using a wheelchair or this or that. And then slowly, as the years started passing, that went away. And probably really did a number on me to say, like, was that real? Did people have these visions of me running on the beach? And is that, like, are they lying, or sweet Christian people making these things up? And actually, I've come to a place of recognizing specifically for several of those visions and dreams, they actually were envisioning me in heaven, I believe, which is so beautiful. But what is fascinating is, to date, I'm 17 years out, I will literally stand on the stage and talk about how my soul is healed. I'm good, everybody. And then I'll get off the stage and immediately somebody will be waiting back there to pray with me. And I mean, this happens or strangers in the grocery store. I mean, it's real weird. It gets weird. And truly, I am bothered, not for me, I have very thick skin, but for maybe someone who's in a wheelchair and not doing okay, and weaponizing scripture and really just bizarre, hurtful questions about unconfessed sin.
Oh my gosh.
Just all the things really, really activates me like none other. So I've gotten kind of spicy and started saying, like, oh, you want to pray for me? Absolutely. Would love that. But don't just stop at the body. Pray for my marriage. Pray for my parenting. Pray for my gossipy tongue. Pray for my heart. Don't merely pray for the outside. I've got so much going on here. But yes, let's pray.
Yeah.
And let them pray for me. But I flipped the script of, like, you're not just going to pray for the things you see, because those don't really matter. Let's go deeper and pray for things that really do. And that it's a little bit of a game-changing moment for them, or a wake-up call for them, I guess you'd say.
No, it's a healthy challenge, just like Jesus, challenging the Pharisees a little bit. I dig it.
Absolutely, I do too. I like a little joyous rebellion. I like the subversive nature of Jesus. Jesus was living the third way. He wasn't just bound by how to do things or not do things. He found a third way.
Yeah.
And I think we're all called to live that subversive life. You know what I was going to say is, I love in John 9 that Jesus does heal the blind man, but that doesn't make his life better. In fact, his life gets a lot worse after he's healed of his blindness. And only eventually at the end of the story, at the end of John 9, do we see that he meets Jesus, he believes in Jesus, he worships Jesus, and we see that the healing has happened.
Yeah.
Because what needed healing was his soul and not his body. And I love that.
So basically, when someone sees you in the dairy department of the grocery store, don't come up to you talking about visions of you wearing heels.
Yeah, I would say decidedly that's not smart. And I'm not hanging out in the dairy section anyway. Don't love the dairy, so I'll be hightailing it out of there. But yeah, you know what though? I think is so key. Everybody's on a journey. Let's show grace for the crazy church lady who's weaponizing scripture and being wacky. Like, let's re-narrate that. Like, let's show her some love, too. I think we're so quick in our world to cancel the weird people or cancel, like, well, she's clearly messed up and confused, and I'm not going to listen to her voice. Yes, don't listen to her voice. Don't internalize her voice. But show grace and love to a broken soul. My word. Like, I think we've gotten so quick at, like, nope, cancel, shut down, gone, that we are really missing the opportunity to say, wow, that is so weird and not right, but I love you as a human being anyway. I can hold space for you to be messed up. And that's okay. Like, I don't need to have you be perfect for me to engage you. And I think
you are a mature believer. That's what you are.
I don't know about that.
Because, first of all, I got to grow in that area, because the weird lady prophesying stuff is just it's a lot. It might take a number on me.
I will say, I don't know if it's maturity as a believer by any stretch, but it has become, as I've spoken at a whole lot of churches, in these last 10 years, things can get real weird. I'm sure you can attest to. Church culture can be decidedly bizarre.
Oh, yes.
And what's wrong with that? Like, every institution in this world has a lot of problems. Can't we hold space for, these institutions are real weird, and that was a stupid decision, and that was bizarre, but I can love messed up people because I too am a messed up person.
Yeah.
And
that's actually one of the things I love is church culture being more. I remember going through campus ministry, and we just were a ragtag bunch of individuals. Like, why is this person here? I mean, somebody was clearly autistic, somebody was this, somebody was, and we were just like, hey, we're one big happy family, because there wasn't that same standard of like, you have to be a part of the cool kids crowd. So I
so
do agree.
interesting. Yeah.
We need to carry that over. Okay, so what's a lie about suffering Christians that we need to stop telling each other?
Oh, well, gosh, interesting question. I'm sure there's a whole lot, but definitely the lie when Christians are suffering that they must have done something wrong.
Yes.
I think that's a huge thing, is they must have unconfessed sin in their life.
Yeah.
That's probably a real doozy. What else? That if they just prayed more, then it would go away, or I just think so much, or that that God caused this and wants me to hurt. I just think that's messed up too. That, I mean, people are all over the map on what you believe. God permits, God allows, God did, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know that that's kind of focusing on the wrong thing, if I'm honest, that God being with you in the struggle through life is ultimately what really matters. Do you believe God is here?
I know you reference Isaiah 45:3, and you talk about finding treasure in the dark.
Kind of a theme.
Yeah. Treasure in the dark. I didn't do that on purpose, but it's done.
I love that you did that, actually, because that is the key. Isaiah 45:3 says, the Lord says, I will give you hidden treasure in the darkness, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am God, the God of Israel, the God who calls you by name. Yeah. And I love this thought, that if you're going through the darkness, you might as well get the treasure. Like, you're already in hell, might as well snatch the good stuff and go through it. Yeah. And you're in the darkness, don't waste it. Don't waste what God is doing in the darkness of your story.
Yeah, I like that. It feels like you're trapped in a mine, or not trapped, but you're in a mine in the dark. Might as well dig for gold while you're down in there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Why waste all the pain?
What do you say to people who feel like, man, all I see is darkness? Where's the treasure? How do I even get to this treasure? I say
a lot about that. Actually, I like to say, several things. One, there are seasons in life. Our lives are stories God is writing, I believe. Stories have chapters. Some chapters are awful. Some chapters aren't awful. So can we recognize that life has different chapters, and the page will eventually turn in the chapter you're in? And that perspective is so important as a believer to know God only writes good stories. So if you are in a hard chapter in that story, hold on, because that's a good story God's writing. We like to tell our kids that God made them to do the hard thing in the good story that he's writing through their lives. And I think that is a crucial message for Christian parents to teach their children. Like, you can do hard things for longer than you think and harder than you think, because the story being written is good and you can trust that.
Yeah. Now, I got to interrupt you, because that's extremely interesting what you said, but I have to interrupt you for a second, because I need everybody right now to like, to subscribe, and to review if you're enjoying what you're hearing. This is very important, because we want other people to enjoy this as well. And don't keep it to yourself. God has gifted you to be a blessing to other people. Be generous. And your generosity means liking, subscribing, and reviewing, so people see this is the place to be. God bless. There's a lot of people who've experienced some form of tragedy or some suffering, and if they're asked, hey, if you could go back in time, would you change this or would you do that? Or do you see other people, are you thinking about, man, I could be doing this, or I wish this was my story? And I'm curious, obviously we all probably process and wrestle those things. How do you talk yourself off that ledge? How do you wrestle through those things?
It's interesting. At this point, 17 years later, I don't. I no longer, I've probably reached the place of not thinking that way anymore. Because the reality is, this is my life. This is my one precious life. This is my one precious body. And it's like decidedly messed up. And yet this is the only interface I'm ever going to have with existence. If you want to get deep, like this, I'm getting excited. This intersection of time and space that we are in right here, right now, is all that we have. So if this is the only way I can show up for this intersection of time and space, then I am worthy of taking up both time and space in this intersection of time and space. It's really powerful thinking that this is it. And I'm not going to wish for it to be some other way. That's so vacuous. No, this is what God has for me, and I'm going to live into this reality because I'm here. I believe if you have a pulse, you have a purpose, and I have tremendous purpose, and I have a pulse. I have a good pulse, and got a load of health problems. I've had 13 surgeries since the stroke. I've broken many bones, taken multiple very bad falls. I broke my leg. It healed, as you can see. I tore my ACL, MCL, meniscus. I'm not saying it's all easy and awesome. It's just been like this perfect road to recovery and this amazing trajectory I'm on with Jesus. It's been complicated and hard-fought joy and some real just junk. And it's not been easy or fun. I don't want to do it again. If I had to, I don't know I want to sign up for that. And yet it is such a good story that God's writing. And I trust that. I live that way. I live recognizing, Lord, this is an incredibly good story that I get to be a part of. And that includes some deep sadness. You know, I will never, short of a miracle, I don't put God in a box, do X, Y, and Z again. Like I don't even remember what it feels like to go on a run. Like it's been 17 years. I don't remember what running feels like anymore. That's really sad. Like I'll never know. I probably will never drive a car. My eyes don't track. I see two images. I see two Lecraes right here. There's you and there's you. And so
which one is more like has a better swag, sauce?
So I'm seeing you right here.
This one is the better looking one? Okay.
Totally.
All right, appreciate it.
But see, what's nice is when I'm speaking to a crowd of any size, I see double. So I just know everybody's cheered me on in this massive, great cloud of witnesses. But anyway, I'll probably never drive a car again. And that is distinctly sad. Like, I hate not driving. It's so annoying. I have to get sweet rides from friends everywhere I go. And my poor husband, oh my gosh, like, he works for me, you know, for free. He gets me dressed. He flat ironed my hair before I came over here. He does it all. And that's sad. Like, I hate having to be patient zero all the time. And yet, like, there are probably things in every single one of our lives that we would change if we could, and we have to make peace with them. I dare say we have to befriend them and live well within them, the constraints in all of our lives.
It's like, I hope one day, if not on this side of glory, on the other side, you will see the gift that you are to the world.
Oh, you are really sweet to
no,
say
like
that.
the words,
Lecrae.
like just that statement alone, what it did for me, I know it's doing for countless others. And I'm appreciative of just that vantage point, that perspective of like, hey, this is what
This
we
is
have.
it. This is it.
So what are we doing with what we have?
Well, exactly.
That's
and that
so
is
good.
for every listener of your podcast to receive. I think that's one of the main reasons that I'm here today, that I'm on this earth today, is to tell people, wake up. Like, this is it. This is your one precious life that God is calling you to live really well. This is your actual life. This is not in theory, anybody.
So good. So C.S. Lewis has this quote, and he says, "We can ignore pleasures, but pain insists on being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It's his megaphone to rouse a deaf world." I'm sure you're a C.S. Lewis fan.
I am, very much so, yes.
And if people would listen to your story and look at your life and your situation, they would say, dang, she's lost a lot. But when they hear you speak, it would seem as if you've gained so much more.
Yeah, I mean, I have. And what's sad, though, is I never want my natural personality, which is very outgoing. I've never met a stranger, very, like, exuberant and full of what I believe is true joy in the Lord. But I never want this personality to feel unrelatable to someone who naturally doesn't have this bent, because it's so much deeper than that. There is a real sense of, I mean, that C.S. Lewis quote that, the megaphone that God's put out, whatever you call that, a big old banner of wake up, is wonderful and a deep gift. But I never want people to think that I'm some superhero or saint because I had a stroke. You know, I'm not saying it very well, Lecrae. I'm sorry. I don't want to seem unrelatable or actually inspirational, which is so funny. I don't desire inspiration from my story, because my desire is application to other people's stories. And whereas so many people in the disability community who are able to articulate and have intact cognition or whatever, can be seen as like, oh, they're this great, like, overcoming, you know. And I'm like, but that's not going to do anything for your life. Maybe you feel inspired for an afternoon. Great. But what I'm more concerned with is an application to your story, to Lecrae's life, based on my story. That should really be the point of all this, of the sharing of stories, is to empathetically listen and learn and grow from what we see in other people.
That's so helpful. There's nothing else I can say. I'm cooked.
Oh, me too.
I'm cooked. And I want you to preserve your voice as well. But I first of all, thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with the world. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us, with me.
Oh, gosh. I don't know if there's any wisdom,
Are you joking?
Oh, please. No, it's, there's a lot of heart, though.
No,
at least I got that.
Well, you have plenty of wisdom from experience. I mean, you're able to look at life from a vantage point that a lot of people don't get to look at life from. And so,
well, they do say that near-death experiences do have the opportunity of, for sure, having PTSD. Yes, that's 100% real. But also a PTG, which is a growing field in psychology of post-traumatic growth.
Ooh.
That, yes, post-traumatic stress is entirely real, absolutely. But some people can, in fact, grow because of their trauma.
Yeah.
That, yes, they sink to the depths, absolutely. But in post-traumatic growth, you don't just go back to baseline. You're not just resilient. You can, in fact, grow because of what's happened to you, which is pretty fascinating.
That's phenomenal.
So I hope that's happening to me.
Well, I didn't know you before all of this, but if I mean, it seems like you've grown. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know who you were before, but I know you after, and who you are after is wise.
I don't know about that, but I'll tell you, before I definitely wasn't processing life as much as I am today. And part of that is age, for sure. But also part of that is an awareness of like, okay, wait, this isn't what I thought it was going to be like when I was a little girl.
Yeah.
You know, I imagine we all have those childhood dreams of what it's going to be like when we're an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that doesn't happen, we have to figure out how to live, how to move forward with the story that is right in front of us.
Yeah.
And, you know, Lecrae, I think so many people miss the miracle because they're waiting for the miracle.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree with you.
It is shocking. If I did not wake up to the fact that I'm going to dream new dreams for my life, I could still be waiting for my dreams from childhood 4-year-old Katherine to come true.
Yeah.
But instead, I'm like, nope, I'm going to become emotionally agile and I'm going to pivot into this story. And because I'm doing that, I can find joy in the story.
Yeah.
Who says it has to be like it was when I was 4? It doesn't. I'm an adult now.
That's great.
I love 1 Corinthians 13, that 13:11. When I was a child, I thought like a child, but not anymore.
Yeah, that's so good. First of all, or last of all, thank you. You're a blessing, you know, in many ways, more than you know. And thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
Oh, gosh, what a blessing to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
This is The Deep End with Lecrae.